facility that's specifically focused on creating peaceful conditions for people to live in. So think of this organization as the bridge between problematic, violent conditions and a way of solving those issues without violence, especially without killing under any conditions. So as opposed to, I don't know if any of you saw the great interviews we're getting international feedback from, literally letters and emails from all over the world about people that agree with our philosophy, which is about positive resolution under all conditions. So a lot of times people will say things like, I'd like to have no violence, I don't want problems, but then they don't have a bridge, they have no way to make that happen. We actually have not just a theory or a concept, but an actual system, so you can actually make that happen. You can enforce a nonviolent outcome. And then if you saw our website, you saw the police officers, a police sergeant who went out on a limb and actually actually spoke without getting clearance. He said that he went into a situation with a woman with a baton, I guess, was going to hit her, or some kind of stick, and he took it out of her hands without injuring her, without spraying her, without shooting her. Even though legally he could have used more force, he was able to use a technique to get out of her hand and subjugate her without injury. And that came from our direct philosophy. Because when I met him, he was a good guy. He just thought sometimes you have to hurt people to get the baton out there. It's really almost never true. It's very, very rare that you ever have to injure someone. And our techniques allow you to make that change. So you want to not hurt kids who are violent or drunk or out of control. Well, there's a way to do that. And this system actually does that. It allows you to take control of people, not hurt them. And actually, that's only the worst case scenarios, because before that, it teaches you how not to have an altercation psychologically. So there actually is no adversarial position. So you can go up against people who are violent and aggressive and still communicate with them both non-verbally and verbally in such a way that you manipulate a positive outcome in a non-violent way. And it doesn't have to be intrusive or invasive either. So a lot of times people say things like, police, you'll hear them say things like, we use verbal judo, which is still a form of combative speech. And it's also still a form of supremacist way of thinking, that I'm going to force you into my way of thinking. Right. What if you could acquiesce in such a way psychologically that there is no adversarial position? It doesn't matter what they called you or what they did. What if there was a way for you to communicate with them in a non-aggressive way, that they believe that you're not their enemy because you aren't? And that's one of the things that I hope that this organization can help bridge, in your organizations and affiliations, that our way of thinking is what's wrong. So ultimately, because we were indoctrinated with a thought process from media concepts and movies that made us believe a certain thing, that was what's false, and we believed it, and so then we went down that path. Me personally, I learned all these things the hard way. Every single thought process I had was wrong, and I only learned it through the reality that I did not like the outcome, and then I failed a lot, and then I started winning when I started thinking differently. And the first thing I did was start thinking, guns are my hobby, guns are not my way of dealing with people. So just because you have a hobby that's something, doesn't mean you actually use your hobby as it relates to something that people often from media and movies attribute as the same thing. These two things are not related. So imagine throwing all that away, the entire way of thinking that guns are not even related to safety, and people not embracing that. I have to actually show them this is real, and that's what my program does. So my organization teaches what we actually have found. So it's one thing to say it's a theory, but we're here in Detroit, this place that people call extraordinarily dangerous. We go out in real life and help real people 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. People that cannot afford us, we help them for free. These are regular people, and the people that we help for free are the people that are in the most serious danger. The wealthy people, minimal danger. That's the ones that pay, so I can afford to go out and help the regular people. But the poor people here that are, and not just in Detroit, 50% of our victims are not even in Detroit, but these are people that we get, and the reason why is because law enforcement, it's not just Detroit police. Law enforcement itself is not, it's not accountable, it's not responsible, and it's not focused on prevention of violence towards people. That's not what its purpose is. A byproduct can be that. So, for example, if they arrest a rapist or a killer or something like this, that could have a byproduct effect of safety, but it's not the purpose. So example is a traffic stop on the side of the road. When is the side of the road actually dangerous? At all times. So why would they be pulling people over on the side of the road if they really were about public safety? When did a ticket become more important than the people in the car? So every year, I guarantee you hundreds, if not thousands of people are injured, including police officers killed, on the side of the road because their thought process said we should pull people over at a traffic stop on the side of a highway. When in reality, there should be a law that says they can't do that. And if they want to pull you over, you have to pull off the next exit to a safe location, and that's where you can have a conversation and tickets or whatever. That would be public safety being first and paramount, but it's not. And that's what we hope to change, that as an organization, we can be that bridge to say, listen, you know, this is a better way of thinking, and this will give you that bridge. So a lot of times what you'll see is police officers that are really positive, that really are community oriented, they do like our philosophy and they use it. And that's the guys you see on our website as well. Unfortunately, we have so few of those guys that they don't get the chance to influence a larger number of them, so they kind of slip through the cracks. And also, they're not the ones that are more proactive in law enforcement. They're also shunned. A lot of those good officers, they're put off to the side, they're fired. So, you know, what we want to do is, as an organization, is support those kinds of good officers that are positive influences, and also add the reality that without accountability, there is no true responsibility. So if there's nothing that's going to happen to you that's negative for your negative outcomes, how are you actually responsible for anything? And right now in law enforcement, there's zero accountability. Zero. So from the top to the bottom. And if we want to see that change, we have to add just that one feature, that at the end of your results, there has to be something positive. If there's something negative, it goes to your name. And right now, it doesn't go anywhere. So if, you know, they say, well, did the officer show up? Yes or no, doesn't matter. Was the result positive or negative? Doesn't matter. So until we can bridge that gap, there's not going to be any effective positive change for us as society. And they're the key to our societal structure. Without law enforcement, without that justice, but not in this format, we can't have a true society that's civilized. But we can't have it with this kind of law enforcement. It's not going to work, where we put law enforcement above people protection. And that's what I hope that our organization can help bridge, is that we all need safety. We all want law enforcement officers to provide us with a service. The service does not include covering up crimes committed in public, and then you tell people to stop filming. Why would you tell someone to stop filming you? You should say, please film me, because I'm going to do something legal and appropriate. And that's what we do as an organization. In my organization, you have to, first of all, you're filming yourself. That's number one. Anything you say to someone should be on film. And we embrace other people filming us. So we've had people, I've had a guy, for example, come out and say, oh, you're filming me? I'll film you back. And I say, good. That's the whole response. Good. You do that. And you know what happens when he films me? He actually de-escalates, because he doesn't want to be on film saying something inappropriate. So now we're both getting along. Right? Now we have a positive environment. What this was an elderly lady who was being harassed by drug addicts next door and a gang across the street. So we got the gang across the street and the drug addicts next door to stop harassing this senior citizen. Wow. And we did it without any violence, without any response to their violent threats. You don't have to do that. That's from television. Television said that violent threats and violent potential means that you have to respond in a like fashion. That's not true. It just is. It's not like turning the other cheek. It's not about that. If you don't even have an adversarial psychological position, there is nothing to turn. Nothing happened. And that's where you have to change your mindset about the feeling about violence. And so that's what I hope that our trainings can do in our system, and I hope it can be a living representation of an idea. And that's the bigger picture here. So understand that this is not a security guard company. I have a security guard entity within our structure, so I can have the legal right to go out and help people and not be able to be stopped by law enforcement. When I first started this organization, I had a dog and a rifle, and that's all I had, and the police were the #1 adversary to the organizational objectives, which was family safety. Not the criminals, not the gangs. The gangs, they just didn't harass me as much as the police did. They literally tried to stop me from helping families. And I could not, coming from a suburban town, Ann Arbor, Michigan, I could not believe the police were trying to stop me. Did you watch movies? You guys, Walking Tall, all the movies. The good people do the good stuff. You harass the bad guys, you don't harass the good guy. But I didn't watch the other movies, like Charles Bronson or something. They did harass that guy. Yeah, and then the reality is, unlike Charles Bronson movies, when you respond with violence, the police get really active. It's amazing what they can figure out on you. It's amazing what they can do when you are the person, defending people. They can pull out all the stops. It's amazing. What you want to do is make sure that, that's another reason for peace, because at the end of the day, any violence that takes place, you're going to be accountable for it. Unlike other people who have union stewards and things like that, you don't have that. You will be accountable and responsible for that nonviolent outcome. And so we hope this is a good bridge, and we hope that we're a good representative of that philosophy.
Can I just quickly ask, like, just a brief history? So you started off with rifle and yourself? And
Yeah, actually I was
where
teaching.
are you now?
Yeah, and a dog, very important. I started off just teaching in the parks. I didn't have any money, and so I was teaching in the parks here in Detroit, teaching self-defense in my school. I thought it would be good if we had a national self-defense school that taught, unlike traditional martial arts, it taught realistic understanding of law and self-defense. That was the purpose of my system. So also to make sure that you knew more about firearms than you knew about swords, and throwing stars, because we don't really have a problem with throwing stars and swords. We do have, unfortunately, a gun problem. So I want regular people to be smarter than the criminals in a situation where there's guns involved. That was my purpose of creating a system for that. And then the law. If you're going to use a weapon, if you had a weapon, what if you took it from the criminal? What if you were in your home, outside your home? What if you were at work? You should know the laws that apply to that. So I created a school for that. And I still didn't have any money, so I was teaching outside 24 hours a day, wherever I could in Detroit. And that's where let's say the focus of how I got started is that I'm first and foremost the creator of a modern martial arts survival school. But not for the purpose of fighting, but for the purpose of real life defending yourself and your family against real criminal situations without getting prosecuted yourself. Then the psychological aspect, I don't know if you look at the literature on here, but everything's a psychology, law, and skills in that order. That's the continuum. Psychology came because of real life application. I got a chance to learn about human behavior by seeing what really happened. So it's one thing to say theoretically, hey, I hope this, or I think this, but what really happens when you're in an altercation, you have to face off multiple aggressors, there are weapons involved, there are no police yet, or the police have left. Real life America, welcome. When you're facing violence, you're going to be facing that violence alone 9 times out of 10. Like the kids at Columbine High School, you're going to be facing it alone. It's just you and them. So what we want to do is make sure that you have intelligent options. That's what the system is for. But you can say the origin of this, like how I started, what was the impetus, was there was a girl who was a lady who was chased off a bridge in front of her children. And this was on CNN for a week. All day, high rotation. And they were interviewing people in Japan, they were interviewing people in every country in the world saying, what do you think about Detroit? Did you hear about what happened? They're like, oh my God, in their language, whatever language was, we're never going to go to Detroit. Look at these people, they killed their children, and they killed the mom. And what's so interesting, because people like to say the single mom thing, and poor people this, and well, this kid wasn't poor. He was going to University of Michigan. He had a full ride football scholarship. He had a decent GPA, very good GPA. Both parents went to college. Both of his parents paid for him to go to a private school. He had a brand new Mustang when he graduated from high school, and this lady who was a drug addict was impatient in traffic, and she hit his car. And then when traffic didn't move, she hit it again. She was trying to push through the car. And his brand new Mustang, this kid's 6'8", he's going to U of M next year. He just graduated from high school with honors. He is also a bully, and 300-something pounds, 6'8", and he is very angry. Gets out of the car in front of a crowd of people. The crowd is yelling, egging him on to aggress, and I really didn't believe that. I thought that it was the media hyping up the story that people wouldn't really cheer to watch a lady get chased off a bridge. Now, being in Detroit after all these years, I know for a fact it's like a Roman thing, group thought. Yes, they will cheer as smaller groups of people or individuals are attacked by a larger group. But I know for a fact, and this is one of the things that pushed me, the guy was agitated, he was aggressive, he got out, he took this crowbar out of his trunk of his car, he went towards the lady, he hit her once, and then he said, jump off the bridge. And if you don't jump off the bridge, I'm going to hit you again. So the lady jumped off the bridge in front of her 5 children. So then 2 guys jumped off, just 2 guys out of the crowd ran and jumped off the bridge after her to rescue her. They also had marijuana at some point, and those 2 guys were arrested for having or selling marijuana at some point, right after they got this heroic award on television a couple days later. They were like, these are the 2 heroes who jumped off the bridge. And if you go over to Belle Isle right now, they were like, you 2 heroes, come here. And they arrested both these guys. I hope they gave them credit and let them go, because If you go over to Belle Isle right now, you're gonna find there's no place on that bridge, not one area, where you'd feel comfortable jumping off under any conditions. I've looked. There is no like shallower area. It's all horrifically dangerous and high. And so these are two really serious heroes right there at the right time. But what if they could have had some skills? What if they would have known how to use psychology, law, and skill to physically intervene? That guy would have not hit her. He would have gone on to University of Michigan to a pro career, had a great life, instead of spending the rest of his life in prison.
Wow.
She would have had her children. They could have watched their mom. They could have had a life. All that could have happened had there been one person trained on that bridge. And that's the purpose. That was the focus from that day forward, to make sure that I could provide some kind of person. That's why we train people every week on Fridays for free. Anyone can come here for training. We also train police officers for free once a week as well. Any officer can come for that training. You can imagine.
How popular is that?
Unfortunately, it is very unpopular.
Police officer training?
What's that?
The police officer version of the training?
No, ours is the opposite of their training. So everything we teach is the opposite too. So we teach them how not to use fear to dictate their actions. We teach them how not to disrespect people. We teach them how not to be gun dependent. We teach them how not to hurt people. So all the things they like, we hate, and we teach against it. So they're kind of like, this is terrible. You get great. So what I do is I sell it to them in a package they can feel, like showing it to them physically, where I can dominate them and they feel the pain, but there's no injury. So they like that. But then they're at the end they're like, wait a minute, what's the part we actually hurt people and get to beat them down and feel good about the beat down?
Pain compliance.
Yeah, without injury. They're like, well, what about the fact they touched me? Shouldn't they be hurt now? No, they don't need to be hurt now. How about that? And they can't. It's like they can't bond with that part. And then also the part where you don't use your gun all the time, like, oh, I have fear, let me grab my gun. They need to not have that, and I teach against it. And so they're kind of
junkies is what they are.
Yeah, well, in theory, that's what they say, but they're really more like bullies than adrenaline junkies. Because when it's tried for adrenaline, and I've been there imagine this, our organization has a reputation of dealing with gangs, enforce conflict. So when you think that, and these are in larger venues, lots of people are there, including police officers. So we got a chance to see what they call the gang squad here in Detroit, the reality. There's a reason why there's always been a gang squad and there's still gangs. I didn't say it was an anti-gang squad anyway. Did I say that? It's a gang squad that does not actually fight the gangs. I know, I was thinking they did. I thought, it's gang squad, there's a bunch of gangs. They do something or something. No, that's fantasy. What really happened was, that never happened. We would be by ourselves fighting a numerically superior group of people. They're here to create mayhem and injury on soft targets.
The cops or the
sorry?
gang?
Yeah.
The gang, both. Well, both. No, really. Because we would see the police officers attack people, they would never attack the gangs. Ever. I can tell you right now, I've never seen them attack a gang member or a man who was aggressive. And I've seen police officers get picked on. I've seen them get abused. I've seen them get approached and aggressed upon, but I have never seen them dominate the person who did that to them. Not one time to this day. And I have seen many horrific things in firsthand with bloodshed, and right here in Detroit. And I can tell you, I never saw them respond in this fashion of adrenaline flow, like, oh, let's go. And even in the suburbs, because I've been in situations in the suburbs where, like there's Southfield police here. They have assault rifles in their car. There's a lot of police officers per capita. And I was thinking, it's just, this is one of the suburbs. We don't need to bring an arsenal ourselves because, dealing with these gangs, because those police are going to, do their thing. Not only do they not remember to fight when it's time for fighting, but they've actually turned on us in the middle of situations where we're defending people. They'll actually block us, like try to defend the bad guys, which does not work out well for them. They usually get hurt by the bad guys or embarrassed by them. So I've been through a lot of different evolutions, but what I can tell you is that's not true. They're not really adrenaline junkies. It's really a mentality that says, I only go after that which I know I can dominate. The moment it's no longer an easy target, I will simply acquiesce and I will talk. So there was a guy, he's not a big guy, maybe 200 pounds and 6 feet tall, but he was really cut up. He had boxing gloves on that are gold, and I didn't know what that meant, but here in Detroit that means you're a golden gloves boxer. And so he took his shirt off and he stood in the middle of traffic, and he looked at gang squad and he told them, take their badges off, take your guns off, and fight them like a man.
Wow.
And this is gang squad. Now gang squad is notorious for beating up people and this horrible violence reputation. Here's your chance. someone would like to fight you. In the middle of the street, he's blocking traffic with his body. He refuses to move. Cars cannot go around. He is definitely an obstruction. He's a threat. He is violent, and he is challenging police officers. The sergeant has a shotgun in his arms like this, and he goes, "All right, let's go. Lock him up, disorderly." And 6 gang squad guys like this. Who are we talking about? And so I was like, wow, the guy is literally right there pointing directly at their faces like, you, step to me. And they will not go for, I could not believe it. Now mind you, there's hundreds of kids watching this.
Wow.
Hundreds of kids. These are nightclubs. We used to do I used to work nightclubs to pay for my schools. Now we don't do any nightclubs, but for 7 years, let's say, I had to fund this organization by doing all the most violent nightclubs. So if you had a problem where gangs came and attacked your patrons, and here they have a habit of attacking the facilities, taking all the liquor, and hospitalizing all the people. Yeah, it's like some third world movie thing. I never heard of that. You call the police where I'm from, the police come, and just, everybody runs or something, and everybody was in a tennis gang in Ann Arbor runs, and that's what kind of gangs we have there. Tennis team, soccer gang or something. The wrestling team, I don't know. But I came here, I couldn't believe it. I could not believe the police will not engage with violent, aggressive people. Because I thought they were adrenaline junkies. They're not. They hate adrenaline. They hate aggressive people. They want the person by themselves. Like I didn't see them beat anyone. I saw them hurt girls. I saw them hurt a little drug dealer like this big who was telling a story about how he got robbed, and he was touching. He touched us. And we're like, okay, sir, you know what? You're supposed to tell the police. They'll be able to help you. And he said they grabbed my chain, and he touched this police officer. This police officer, he's telling the story. He's just telling us he didn't hit the officer. He just told him they grabbed my chain. He's very animated because I think he's going to be in a lot of trouble when he goes and explains how a $30,000 necklace is no longer in his possession. And he's like 21. So he's in trouble, and he's kind of stressed out a little bit. He tells this police officer story. He touches the officer's chest. The officer takes his hand, smashes him in the throat. He grabs his throat and starts running. The guy, I swear the kid is like this big. As he's running away, the other officers see him running, and they knock his legs out from under him, break one of his legs, and then drop him off at the hospital.
Wow.
So the next day, there are 30 men at my facility, 30 gang members at my facility. Not this school, it's my first facility down on Jefferson. This is like 1997 or something. And he says, it's like 30 guys, and one of the guys goes, I brought my uncle down here because our cousin had their leg broken, and they said that it was security that broke his leg. He said, I brought my uncle here because we know that your reputation is that you would not do that, so I wanted to explain that to my uncle that, you are honorable, and so that's why I brought him here to talk to you. So, I explained it to him. This is another reason why we have problems with gangs, because once they knew that we don't back down, but we also don't start